Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper into policy. So, what has the government done most recently in response to the coronavirus pandemic? It's actually not the DARES Act, as I think I called it before. I don't know where I came up with that. It's the CARES Act, which stands for Coronavirus Aid and Recovery Economic Stimulus or something like that. What is it called exactly? Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. CARES. Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security is the name of the bill. So the part that we saw the most of, or that got the most headlines, was that Congress sent every household, or every person really, a check for $1,200. So that is exactly in our model a lump sum tax rebate. You just got $1,200 more dollars. And they did, in a sense, a similar tax rebate to firms, meaning they were sending forgivable loans to firms, which is for them the same as a tax rebate for you. So, how does that work in the model? And was this a good idea or not? And that's a complicated question. So in the baseline model, and I mean this is actually true. I mean it's not something curious about our model. This is absolutely a true in reality. Is that in theory, these tax rebates with no change in government spending should have no effect on consumers in our model. It shouldn't change consumption in any way, shape, or form. And so you say, why not? Well, remember that the government has a budget, right? So when I decrease tax revenue today, so I send out tax rebates, how do I pay for that? Well, today the government borrowed, right? So they issued bonds in order to finance that additional tax rebate or those checks they sent out. And so really all that the government is doing is providing you a loan. You get $1,200 today, but I'm going to make you pay that back in the future via higher taxes. So the present value of taxes doesn't change, right? So you really can either have higher future taxes, or the other option, now that we've introduced money into our model, and this is an option for governments in reality, is remember that government budget constraint. I had money as another possibility, right? So the government budget in our modified form allowed me to finance the spending either by higher future taxes, or I could increase the supply of money. So I could do what we say is to monetize the debt. Meaning I really just pay for this extra debt with additional money. So I'm gonna pay for it with money. Now, all that really does is increase the price level. And so we have something we call an inflation tax. So there's really two options that you're going to pay for the $1,200. One is with higher future taxes and or with inflation if the government decides to monetize the debt, meaning when this debt comes due, rather than pay for it with tax revenue, we're just going to print off money to pay for it, or have the Federal Reserve buy it and retire the debt, in which case we get inflation. So no matter what, my present value of taxes should increase, and so this would produce no change in consumer behavior, right? So really what should be happening, in theory, is similar to, I gave you this story previously, that when I worked at the University of Iowa, when I was going to school there, getting my PhD, I worked as a teaching assistant. And so I would get some small allowance deposited in my bank account each month to pay for my work as a TA. And so there was another David Fuller at the university, and one time I got that person's paycheck. So I looked at my bank account after payday, and I had a lot more money in there than I was expecting. And so, I knew that obviously this was a mistake, and the university was going to ask for that money back, right? So it's like I got a tax rebate, but I knew that this was going to be asked back some point in the future. And so what is the optimal response there is to take the extra money and put it in your savings account, and wait until they ask for it back. That's what I did. And that's in theory what should happen with a tax rebate, right? You get $1,200. What should happen, according to our model, and what should actually happen if we're behaving sort of optimally, is that the $1,200 just goes into your savings account. It earns interest, and then in the future, your taxes go up, and you use that savings with the interest to pay back the extra tax revenue, which will be higher than the current tax rebate because the government pays interest on its loans. So in that sense, you might say, well, wasn't this CARES Act a waste? And the answer is, well, it depends, right? So in reality, the tax rebates do affect consumption. So there are a number of households that obviously will get the $1,200 and they will spend it on something. So they may actually save it in the form of paying down some debt, which would still, again, say it doesn't affect consumption. But there are some households that are going to spend at least part of their stimulus rebates. And so the question is why, and is that beneficial, right? So we know they shouldn't. Maybe technically, in our perfect framework, they shouldn't, but maybe they should. So we'll see. So I'm going to go through two different reasons why the tax rebate would be spent and whether or not that's beneficial. So we're going to have a behavioral reason, and we'll have another reason which has to do with frictions in the credit market. So we will explore both of these separately.